Hi everybody, it's Marcy, and I'm here with some more Christmas card making. So today I'm going to work on a Gatefold Peek-a-boo card. The card will be 5 inches wide by 6.5 inches tall, and of course these can all be, any of these cards can be adjusted to make them whatever size you want, but that's what I'm going to be doing. And this card, it has a little belly band around it to help keep the card closed. And then what makes it peek-a-boo, obviously it's a gatefold, but then when you open it up, you've got this little mechanism here that pulls out and you get your little peek-a-boo. So I've just put a greeting here, and here it talks about poinsettias. It says there are more than 100 varieties of poinsettias available today. The showy colored parts are not actually flowers, but colored modified leaves. So, that's what we're going to work on today. Now, and again, this was inspired by Angela Serendipity Arts, as shown on the class hosted by Maddie at Spectrum Art Creations. All of their information will be linked below, and I'd appreciate it tremendously if you would check them out. Unlike the others that I've done before, where I was able to go through it and give you basic what you need to do at the end, this one is going to be a little different, so I'm going to be stopping along the way and putting up almost step-by-step instructions. So, just to let you know that. So, there will be a lot of stopping and starting in this video, and some of the things I'll be telling you that you need to do or can do, I'll then cut out the part where I'm actually doing it just to help save some time. Okay, so here's what we're going to start with. Piece of plain cardstock. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it down to 6.5 inches tall by 10 inches wide. So, 6.5. And 10. Then I am going to, remember it is a gatefold, so I'm going to put the 10-inch edge of my paper at the top of my scoreboard, and I'm going to score at 2.5 inches. And then I'm going to flip it around, and I'm going to score at 2.5 inches again. And then you can fold in your two sides to create your gatefold. Okay, we have our gatefold. So the next thing we want to do is cut the pieces for the outside of our card. So you will want 2 pieces of whatever paper you want to use or cardstock that are 2 3/8 inches wide by 6 3/8 inches tall. Okay, and that will leave you a 1/16 of an inch all the way around. Now for mine, and this is optional, for mine, I've also cut another piece that is, where is it? 4 7/8 inches wide by 6 3/8 inches tall that I'm actually going to put on the back of this card. I haven't been doing that on most of my cards, but on this one I'm going to. So, and then, once you've got those cut, they're ready to be put on. So you can put the 2 panels, and if you're putting something on the back of your card, go ahead and attach those at this point. Okay, I got the outside of my card covered. And for right now, that's all we're going to do to the outside. So then we're going to move to the inside. And we're going to do the exact same thing on the inside that we did on the outside. So you will want 2 pieces of cardstock, whatever cardstock or paper, or you could just leave it blank and not add anything to the inside if you didn't want to. So you're going to need 2 that are 2 3/8 inches wide by 6 3/8 inches tall. And you will want 1 that is 4 7/8 by 6 3/8. And just like on the outside, those can go ahead and be adhered down. One thing I did forget, the paper I'm using is the Craft Smart Safe Freeze paper pad from Michaels that I got. I don't remember if it was last year or the year before, and I'm almost out of it, which makes me sad. But, so, now we're going to cover the inside just like we did the outside. Okay, so now I've got the inside of my card covered, and I'm ready to make the sliding pieces for my card. So what I'm going to use is 2 pieces of cardstock that have been cut to 3 1/2 inches wide by 3 1/2 inches tall. So 3 1/2 by 3 1/2 square. And for right this instant, I'm going to set one of them aside, and I'm going to flip the other one over. That's not true. Told you this part gets a little more complicated and harder to explain. All right, first thing I'm going to do is I've got my 2 pieces, and because I have printed cardstock, I'm going to put my pieces facing each other. Because no matter what I do, I need them to sort of mirror each other. So, first, I'm going to take one and I'm going to leave them as if my pages are facing each other. And I'm going to score 1/4 inch from the edge. And I'm going to work, instead of trying to come over here to this corner, I'm going to go from 3 1/2 to 3 1/4, which will give me 1/4 inch score. And then this one is my face up piece, so I'm going to do the same thing. Go from 3 1/2 to 3 1/4 and score. Okay. And everything I do, I'm leaving my, sort of like with fabric, I'm leaving my printed sides right side up and together. All right, so now I'm going to set one apart. I'm actually going to flip it this way and set that one apart. All right. So now, I switched mine around so that I've got my score line on the left side of my paper, or the left-hand side of my left side, because that makes it easier for me. And the first thing I'm going to do is measure 1 1/2 inches from the edge. I have not folded my score line, and I'm going from the edge of the paper. 1 1/2 inches. and marking it. Okay, and now I'm going to use my two little marks to connect my lines, and mine are pretty long. They don't need to be that long. Now I'm going to turn it this way, and I'm going to, I've got it 3.5. Now I've got my scored edge at the bottom. So 3.5, half of that is 1.75. So I'm marking it at 1.75 basically from the top. And $1.75. Really, all I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make a sort of a cross mark or a crosshair, crosshatch. That's what we'll call it. All right. Now I'm going to put my two pieces together again so that the scored lines are scored here and scored here, both on the same side. And basically, I'm just going to cut a banner or fishtail, whatever you prefer to call it. So I'm going to go from the outside corner and cut into the center. Trying to hold my papers very carefully so they don't move. And go from this outside corner and into the center to where they meet. Okay, now, just because I have a little bit of OCD, although it will not be seen, I'm going to go ahead and erase that. Okay, so now I've got my center flaps, and when I flip my pages over, now they are mirrored so they match each other. Even if your cuts aren't perfect, you really kind of want them to match. Okay, so now I can go ahead and fold under at my score line and burnish those. Okay, so I'm going to ink around my edges, and while I do that, I'm going to throw up the instructions to get us to this point so you can get caught up. Okay, so I inked around the edges of my banners, and now I'm going to go back to the inside of my card, and this is my top edge. And I'm going to grab my ruler again and my pencil again. And on the flap of my card, I'm going to line up my ruler with the top edge. And I'm going to make a small mark at 1.5 inches and at 5 inches. And that will help me know where to line up my banners. And then I'm going to come over to the other side, and I'm going to do the same thing. And whichever edge you measure from, you will want to measure from the same edge on both flaps. And don't measure from your cardstock. Measure from the top of the base of your card, because your cardstock may not be lined up exactly evenly. So to get them lined up as close as they possibly can be, I discovered this was the best way to do it. All right. So I've got my little measurements there. And now I'm ready to place my fishtails. And they should fit right in those marks. So what I'm going to do is, and to make this a little easier for you to see, I'm going to go ahead and run a little bit of distressing down my score line so you'll be able to better see what I'm doing. All right. So I'm going to put some glue on my 1/4 inch flap. Be sure I've got the right one, that it's turned right side up. So my 1/4 inch scored piece, I'm going to go ahead and put glue on that. And it's folded under. And then I'm going to lay it down. Try to get it right between my marks. But I don't want it to go onto my score line. I want it to be just outside my score line. Let's see if I got that. All right, so I got that one down all right. Okay, and then I'm going to burnish that down. Fold this flat, fold this banner over, and I'll burnish it. Okay, then I'm going to come over to the other side, and I'm going to do the exact same thing. And I'm going to use those marks again, but this time I will also be checking the alignment with the banner that I already placed. And again, this is not going to be perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but this is how I found I was able to get it I don't need it to be perfect, but I want it to be as good as I can make it. Okay, and those line up pretty well. So I will go ahead and burnish this one down. Let's be sure. Okay, and I did not get it on my score line. All right, so that part is done. Okay, now it's time for our belly band that has the circle cut out of it. So for this, you're going to want a piece of cardstock that is 3.5 inches wide by 7.5 inches tall. And you're going to pull out your scoreboard again, putting the 7.5 inch edge at the top, and you will want to score 1/2 inch from the top and bottom. And I'm going to be scoring from here just to make it easier, so I'll be going from 7.5 down to 7. And I'm going to flip it around, and I'm going to do the same thing here. All right. So now, when I fold and burnish these, my belly band should be now 6.5 inches tall. And it is. Okay. So now I'm going to flip my belly band over. And unfortunately, have to make measurements again. We need to find the center. So, I'm going to be making my cross marks again. And with my scored edges, my 1/2 inch edges folded over, and my belly band measuring 6.5 inches. The center will be 3¼ inches. Oh, not 3.5, 3¼ inches. So I'm going to make 2 marks there. Let's get rid of that one. And I need the center of the width, which is 3.5, so 1 3/4. I'm going to make a couple of marks for that. And I'm going to mark that as well. Now, I want to make a 2.5 inch circle. I'm going to use my die cuts or my cutting dies. If you don't have cutting dies, just find something round that is about 2.5 inches. You probably would not want it to be any bigger than 2.5, but it could be a little smaller. And this part, I have marks on here, but they don't line up real well, so I just kind of eyeball. Try to be sure my crosshairs are about center. And then I'm going to tape it. And although I have not done it, it's something I'd like to try. I can't imagine why a square would not work. If you don't have a circle die cut, let's say and you don't want to, circles can be kind of hard to cut by hand. I can't imagine why doing a square would not work. I would do 2 3/4 to maybe 2.5 inch square. And that you could measure out and cut easily just using a ruler and a craft knife. Okay, so I'm going to take this over to my die cutting machine, and while I do that, I'll put up the instructions so far for the belly band. Okay, so I got the center cut out of my belly band. And now what I want to do is I want to fold my banners down, and it's time to adhere. I'm just going to adhere my belly band on the bottom flap that I made with the score lines. And you could measure over. I find for me, it actually works better to just kind of eyeball it because, and see, I can tell my circle is not cut exactly centered because I have more of the banner showing up here than I do down here. But, and that's fine. I'm not worried about that. But I do want to be sure, regardless of what my measurements may say, I want to be sure that it doesn't look like that or like that. So for me, I tend to just kind of like to eyeball where I think the belly band needs to go. And I think about right there will be good. And I'm going to hold it and pull out my glue. Put glue just on the flap. I can always come back and add a little more glue if need be, but I just, yeah, see, I moved it already. Even though I was working so hard to hold it. All right. That looks pretty even-ish. Okay, but I'm not going to glue the top yet. Okay, so now the hard part of this card is really over now. So now that I've got the bottom attached, I can go ahead and put whatever I want in this space. I can go ahead and put that down. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put a piece of, I cut down a piece of scrapbook paper to 3 1/4 by 3 1/4. And we're going to get that put down. I just want to be sure that it goes all the way over to the edge and that it does not show above the top or bottom. Okay, so that ought to work. And then over that, I'm going to put this little warmest wishes. About like that. So now really just about everything else is about the decorating. Okay. So I've got that down now. Now I'm going to fold my 2 banner pieces in. And since I've got that, I'm ready to glue down that top flap on my belly band. And if I've done everything correctly, I've got sliding going on. So then I've got my little peekaboo. All right. So I think I'm going to, I know it will cover part of that up and part of that up, but I'm okay with that. Oh, maybe I'll be okay with that. Yeah, I just need to be sure I've got it in the right spot. Okay, so just to decorate that a little more, I'm gonna put that on the front of my belly band piece. Just want to be sure I don't get glue up here or over here. You open it up, warmest wishes, Merry Christmas. All right. Then the only other thing that I am going to do with this is I am going to make a belly band to help keep the card closed. And you don't have to do this, or you can make something entirely different. But for this one, and I'm just using some of the small little belly band papers. I just cut out a few of them to about 2 inches thick. Is that what it is? What is it? Okay, this is about 1 3/4 inches. And I am just going to lay that down, wrap it around the card, and don't want it to be too tight. Because you want it to be able to slide on and off the card easily. And then I will put a little glue here. And a little glue on this edge. And just glue that down, and then I'm just going to pop a little most wonderful time of the year card up here on the front of the belly band. So there you go. Okay, I'm going to pull that off real quick to be sure I don't have glue. All right. So, there we have it. Now, I know I didn't make that too tight because I had no trouble. There we go. Sliding it off. Okay. So, there's the little Gatefold Peek-a-boo card. It can be kind of tough and confusing to make, but really the only hard part is that very middle section. So I hope I've broken it down for you well enough. Let's go through this again. Slide the belly band off. And we've got our little peekaboo section. Anyway, they're kind of time-consuming to make, and they do require measuring and cutting and a little bit of precision to work the way you're going to want it to work. But they are kind of cute cards. So until next time, I wish you all a wonderfully happy, crafty day, and I will see you again very soon. Bye-bye.